Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
And everyone please rise. Extend your hands in front of you as though you're holding a prayer or about to receive a gift. You may recite along with me silently as I recite aloud the opening prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Master of the daily quill. Thee do we serve, and thee do we beseech for help. Guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not of those upon whom wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray. Amen. You may be seated. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, most merciful, in the person of our Father, the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him forever. And we thank Master Fard Muhammad, who came in the person of Allah in the year 1930. He is the manifestation of Almighty God Allah. We will remember him and we will praise him forever. And we will honor him by naming our children after him for at least 1,000 years. And we thank our Father, the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, for raising the field supreme minister of the New World Nation of Islam, Holy Tribe of Shabbat, Ali Mahdi Muhammad. We greet you in the greetings of peace in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum. And in the New World Nation of Islam, greetings of peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
Thank Allah much for your coming out. I am Brother Minister Rahim Ali, your host for this afternoon. And I'm honored to be your master of ceremony for today's temple service. Today, we have a life-giving message from the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, which comes out of the book, Fall of America. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. The subject is Washington, D.C. speech. It was May the 29th, 1959. This is on page 1 to 17 in chapter 1. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. This subject will be given to you by two dynamic ministers of the New World Nation of Islam, Holy Tribe of Shabbat. But before we introduce these two ministers, allow me to explain the protocol and procedure you have just experienced. As you was entering our temple service, we ask that you submit to our searching procedure. This searching procedure is not the invention of the New World Nation of Islam, Holy Tribe of Shabbat. It was first given to us in 1930 by Allah God, who came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. This searching procedure is for your own protection. You do not need a weapon. You will not be attacked. If you look in the auditorium room, you will see that you have the men on one side and the women on the other. This separation of the sexes is meant only to prevent the natural distraction between men and women. Also, if you have a cell phone, please put them on vibrate or turn them off. This is to avoid disrupting the service. And finally, if anyone should need to use the restroom, motion for one of the brothers or sisters in the rear, and he or she will assist you to the area. Thank Allah so much again for your coming out. It's a question that's asked quite often to the New World Nation of Islam, and that is, what is the New World Nation of Islam? But I have this to say. First off, the New World Nation of Islam, most people, when they hear that, they think that we are a new group of folks who just are sprung up overnight. That is not so, brothers and sisters. The New World Nation of Islam, if you read the books of our father, the most honorable Muslim Elijah Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him forever, you will find he always taught us that he was preparing us for Master Farad Muhammad, Allah God. And that Master Farad Muhammad would establish the new world out of those true believers of his nation of Islam. That is, those who held fast to his teaching. So, the new world, and the fact is this, the new world nation of Islam is the old world. And the old world is the new world. The only difference is this, brothers and sisters, is that Master Farad Muhammad is now establishing and teaching and qualifying those true believers of the most honorable Muslim Elijah Muhammad, just as he said he would do to enter into the new world. His light, the most honorable Muslim Elijah Muhammad, his light that has prepared us for the meeting with and acceptance of Allah God in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. Now, the difference between the New World Nation of Islam and the Nation of Islam is this. The New World Nation of Islam teach the presence of Allah God. And the old world teach of his coming, of Allah. That is the difference. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. You know, thank Allah much. Yes, sir. We are the holy tribe of Shabazz. We are that God tribe. The most honorable Messiah Muhammad teaches us that we are the tribe that came from this part of the planet. We are the original. We are the family of God. Holy tribe of Shabazz. In the Bible it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We have to think about that for a minute. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word with God. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. If you think, and those who have a Bible dictionary, go in and look up Elijah. When you look up Elijah, you will see my God, for God is with us. That is the meaning of Elijah. Elijah was prophesied to come in the last days, right before what we're living in right now. And everybody in here can bear witness that we are definitely living in some troubled time. It looks like the end is right about the corner. But Elijah had to come first. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. We want to just give thanks concerning our women. Master Farad Muhammad said, this is thanks to our black women, to the black woman. Master Farad Muhammad said that they came with the black man. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that whenever he came, she came also. There was never a time when she was not with him. When we was brought here on those slave ships in 1555, we were shackled and chained and sold on the auction block. The black woman was shackled, chained, and sold on the auction block right along with them. The murder and rape of him was the murder and rape of her. She is the strongest and she's the most faithful of all women. She is the field that will produce our offspring. in which we plant and cultivate our children, our seed. This is the field. So the most honorable Mr. Elijah don't want us beating on our women. He wants us to treat them gentle and raise them up and then put them on a pedestal where they belong. She is the most important part of our life. So we thank Allah so much for our beautiful black woman. We can never say enough. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. We must not forget that we are a nation of peoples here. We are a nation with over 50 million, or approximately 50 million people. Also, approximately 2 million Indians who are also original and are black. If we accept Allah God, then we have to accept our brothers who are also thought to be enslaved. If you accept the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, and you accept him as an apostle, you will get an apostle reward. If you accept him as a messenger, you will get a messenger's reward. If you accept him as a prophet, you will get a prophet's reward. But we accept the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad as Almighty God Allah. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. We know that we have been going through a lot for the last 456 years or something like that. No one has went through what we have went through. We have to go through the fire, as the scripture said. We have to go through that. That's why we're up here today, you and I, bearing witness that Allah is God in the person of Master Prophet Muhammad, and that we are his children. So we thank Allah so much for that. We want to give a thanks to our brothers and sisters who are in federal penitentiaries, in the county jails, in the mental hospital. We want to let them know that we have not forgotten you. The most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad ordered us to free the captive believers. And that will be done. We quote what the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad wrote. And what he said, we must obey. Today, we are thankful that we have that light of the honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad that is guiding us through this dark time. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, I would like to recite the key. The key to understanding the teachings of our Father, the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, is to know that the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad says what he means and means what he says. We quote what he wrote, and what he said we must obey. Nothing is wrong. Everything is in time and on time all the time. The history is already written in 25,000 year cycles. Our Father, the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad said, before the kingdom can come, there must be a falling away first. During the night of spiritual darkness, the devil will cast 1/3 of the stars of God down to the ground. But a new sun and a new day under the guidance of the great Mahdi will come, and he will turn the hearts of the children back to our Father, the most honorable, Mr. Elijah Muhammad. So praise be to Allah Muhammad. Without anything further to say, we would like to bring on our first speaker for today, our beloved brother, Minister Hadi Ali.
Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
How's the family?
Fine, sir.
All praise is due to Allah Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
Y'all know that this is not an easy thing because we've been doing it 60 years. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Can we give our brother a round of applause for his In the name of Allah, the beneficent and merciful, in the person of our Father, the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him forever. And we thank Master Farad Muhammad, who came in the person of Allah in the year 1930. He is the manifestation of Almighty God, Allah. We will remember and praise him forever, and we'll honor him by naming our children after him for at least 1,000 years. And we thank our Father, the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, for raising among us the field supreme minister of the New World Nation of Islam, holy tribe of Shabazz, Ali Mahdi Muhammad. I greet you, my beloved brothers and sisters, in the New World Nation of Islam's greetings of peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
And in our native language of Arabic, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
All praise is due to Allah Muhammad. The key to understanding the teachings of the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad is to know that he says what he means and he means what he says. We quote what he wrote, and what he says, we must obey. Nothing is wrong. Everything is in time and on time all the time. The history is already written in 25,000-year cycles. Our Father, the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, said that before the kingdom can come in, there must be a falling away first. That during the night of spiritual darkness, the devil will cast 1/3 of the stars of God down to the ground. But a new sun and a new day, under the divine guidance of the great Mahdi, will come, and he will turn the hearts of the children back to our Father, the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. The new sun is raised in the wilderness of North America by the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. I greet you once again, my beloved brothers and sisters, in the greeting words of peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
How's everybody doing?
Fine, sir.
All praise is due to Allah Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, we have quite a subject before us today, has quite a bit of relevance to it. And as we get into this subject, which is the Washington, D.C. speech made on May 29th, 1959 by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it has a lot of significance around this speech because we want to give you a timeline. We want to start from 1958 and go to 1960 and show you how right in between it the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made this speech. But before we do that, we want to start off by quote directly from this speech. And it is the very first statement, and we think it is a powerfully important statement. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, "My people, I am here to fulfill the promise made long ago. I am here to bring you the truth. I am here with a solution to the problems of the so-called Negro and his white slave masters." Let's stop right there. That's a whole lot of claim. The solution to the 463-year-old problem of the black man and the white man in America? Is there somebody in here want to deny that the two people have a problem with one another? Well, he certainly has a problem with us because we didn't come get him. He came and got us. And to this day, he continues to make us promises that he just does not keep. And we're being told, why don't y'all just forget all that? Why don't y'all let it go? When we let it go right now, we ain't got nothing. So what do we have that we can let go of? We don't have nothing. People wonder why, or what is all this teachings of Elijah Muhammad about, this black nationalist thing that y'all just won't let go of. Once again, it ain't us. They won't let go of us. Now, brothers and sisters, this timeline begins in November, December of 1958. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came to the city of Newark for the first time to meet his new followers, and he came against the advice of his doctors and family. He had a temperature above 100 degrees. And a doctor told him if he got out of the bed, he was going to die. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he could hear Master Farad Muhammad's voice in his head saying, never pass up an opportunity to teach. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he got up out of that bed and he got on that plane and he got here. But when he got here, as he began to speak, he looked out into the audience in Newark, New Jersey. And he looked out and he stopped and he said, I see Allah, don't you? Then he said, no, I guess you can, not yet, it's not time. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as the story goes, as the history goes, he went on to say to the believers that day that he was so happy, that he was feeling much better, and that he was going to break protocol. That up to that point, he had went to different cities and established temples or mosques. And each one of those mosques was given a number. And he hadn't reached the number 25 yet, but he said he was going to break protocol and he was going to give Newark, New Jersey the number 25. He said, number 25 is my number. Now, the scientists of Islam know that there are 24 Islamic scientists, and the last one acts as God. Elijah means my God. He didn't give himself that name. In fact, to verify what this verse is saying, that I am here to fulfill a promise made long ago, the promise that was made long ago was in Genesis 15, 13, and 14, when God said to the prophet Abraham, know for certain that thy descendants shall be lost in a land that is not theirs for 400 years. But I, meaning God himself in the end, I will come. And I will judge that people that enslaved them, and they shall depart with great riches. We didn't say that. The Bible that they gave us, to brainwashed us with, said that. They just never taught us that part. A promise fulfilled. Where the last book of the Old Testament says, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the day of the Lord arrives, and he will turn the hearts of the children back to the fathers, and the hearts of the fathers back to the children, lest I come and strike the earth with doom. The crime of enslaving an entire nation of original people who are living in peace is not something that sits well with God. There is no crime, whether you Jew or otherwise. There is no crime greater that has been committed against a people than the so-called American Negro, and they won't stop ceasing in committing the crime. The timeline follows to this date, May 29, 1959. And what is so relevant, not only in what our father says in this speech, that is important, because what he says in there is important, but also the fact that once he had found the God he was looking for, see, gods, we know, they transcend. One is on the scene, and then when his work is done, the seed of his message goes into the next one. He is the only one able to pick up that knowledge, that wisdom, that understanding on the level of the one before him. So when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad looked out in the audience in 58, he looked and saw himself. So, well, I never heard it quite like that before, brother. But that's what he saw. Now, the brother just quoted John 1:1, that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, if that's the truth, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad looked out and seen that the Word was with one sitting among those in Newark, New Jersey, and he said, I see Allah, don't you? See, this ain't for everybody. Everybody looking for a spook. Everybody looking on it for a spirit. See, that makes it safe. That makes it safe that if the truth is to come out in the end, then as it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. Now, in the beginning was darkness. Now, if you look under the microscope, you'll see that in the beginning is darkness. Take any people and look under the microscope, and in the beginning was darkness. So now, it ain't strange that in the end, darkness would come on the scene and God would manifest himself. See, this is how we straighten it all out, because the one who done caused trouble for 6,000 years, he got everybody looking for a spirit when it comes to God and the devil. If you knew the devil was a man too, you know who the devil is. Got enough evidence? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad goes on to say in the 5th paragraph, he says, never in the history of human evil have so many asked for just a pittance, so loud, so long, and received in return so little, if anything at all. He said, the church has failed you. Christianity failed you. The government of America has failed you. You have not received justice from any quarter. You approach the Senate, the House, the White House, and you ask for justice. You get injustice. We need to understand some things about Washington, D.C. The historical references of Washington, D.C., and this is taken from the Masonic Philosophical Society. Freemasons or Freemasonic order influences everything from the architecture to the planning of Washington, D.C. Among the cities of the United States, Washington, D.C. rises above all others in its unique and complex design. Disregarding a strict grid plan that was common during the time, the architects of our nation and capital had a grand vision developed upon an elaborate pattern of diagonal avenues and traffic circles. The city is a representation of unity and is symbolically brought together the union of the 13 colonies struggling for independence. Freemasons have laid a cornerstone in most, if not all, of the major buildings in Washington, D.C. And on September 18, 1793, the President George Washington conducted the laying of the cornerstone of the U.S. Capitol. The newspapers of the day reported on Wednesday, one of the grandest Masonic processions took place for the purpose of laying the cornerstone of the Capitol of the United States, which perhaps was ever exhibited on the like important occasion. About 10 o'clock, lodge number 9 was visited by the congregation, so graceful to the craft. Lodge number 22 of Virginia, with all their officers and regalia, and directly afterwards appeared on the southern banks of the Grand River Potomac, one of the finest companies of volunteer artillery that has been lately seen, parading to receive the President of the United States. The President of the United States and his attendants, brethren, ascended from the Coliseum to the east of the cornerstone, and there the Grand Master Pro Tem elevated on a triple rostrum. delivered an oration fitting the occasion, which was received with brotherly love and commendation. Freemasonry was constructed around the use of symbolism and metaphors connecting architecture, master builders, right? And art, which includes movies, music, and everything else. In other words, brothers and sisters, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came in the midst of the most powerful stronghold in the world. And after finding God in the city of Newark, he walked up into D.C. and he let everybody know he was God. He thanked the people of Washington, D.C., the police force, upon his traveling there. He thanked them for their security over him. But he also made it clear they understood why, that he wasn't worried about anything happening to him. Why did they protect Elijah? The timeline takes us to 1959 December, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made his surprise visit to New York on his way to Mecca. That's where he announced it looked like Elijah's going to have to go back into the prison and raise up some more good ministers, because he had the brothers he needed in New Jersey. And they went to prison and raised them up. And finally, Savior's Day 1960, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, and gave the authority to the Field Supreme Staff of the New World Nation of Islam in front of the entire nation of Islam, or with the entire nation of Islam, meaning the ministers know, that the staff for the beginning of the New World Nation of Islam is right here. We thank Allah Muhammad much for this opportunity before the brothers and sisters to give you these few words on this subject about a very important speech that when you get an opportunity, brothers and sisters, read this and listen to the message within the message. We thank Allah Muhammad much as we bring back to the roster my beloved brother minister, Rahim Ali. Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
Praise be to Allah Muhammad. Let's give our beloved brother another round of applause. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. That's what all of us need. This is knowledge that he gave us. Some of us may have glanced at it, but he took us a little deeper into what we have. So we thank Allah so much for our beloved brother minister. We want to tell, first of all, what we need to do. We're going to take and explain the props we have behind us, which is the picture of Master Farad Muhammad, who is on my left. You have the actual fact board, and you have the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, the messenger of Allah. We would like to just give you a little bit on this. Also, in front of us, we have our national, which is the sun, moon, and star. Master Farad Muhammad, he was born in Saudi Arabia, February 26, 1877. Father was a black man, his mother was a white woman. He was born for the purpose of coming to the east and finding that lost sheep of Abraham. There's a scripture in the Bible says, when God told Abraham, he said that your seed shall be a sojourner in a land that is not theirs, and they shall serve them for 400 years and be afflicted. But after this 400 years, I will come and get them myself, Abraham. Well, this was God coming from the east to fulfill that part of the scripture. This was him fulfilling that part as that light that shined from the east to the west. He's bringing the truth. He was like an arrow being shot toward the west. A bolt of lightning, in and out. He came and did his work. When he got here, in Detroit, Michigan. He would get set up teaching. He was a salesman selling suits and stuff and fine things like that to our people just to get in the house. So he can give them the truth, telling them they was kings and queens from their own land. But eventually, the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, the messenger of Allah, heard about this man. And heard that he was teaching stuff that he needed to go in here. He got this from his wife, if I'm not mistaken. And so he decided to go and check it out himself. And when he went to hear Master Farah Muhammad speak, as Master Farah Muhammad began to speak, the wheels began to turn. And he recognized who Master Farah Muhammad was. He was in the audience. So after the sermon, Master Farah Muhammad would go and he was mingling with the audience, you know, talking, shaking hands and whatever. Mr. Muhammad waited until he saw his opportunity to go and speak to him. So what he did is as soon as he saw the opportunity, he went up to Master Farah Muhammad. And he said, I know who you are. Pardon me. Master Farah Muhammad looked at him kind of like stern, like, well, who did you say I am? He said, you are that one that comes from the east, that light that comes from the east. You are that one. Yeah. He said, you're God. He said, yeah, who know that but yourself? And nudged the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad off to the side. But after that, you could not keep the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad away from Master Farah Muhammad. The Master Farah Muhammad came with the key and the crown of the universe for the most honorable, for that lost sheep. Now, we know sheep could be plural and it could be singular. He came for that lost sheep, that one. Master Farah Muhammad did not stay around after he gave Elijah everything that he was supposed to have. He left. He fulfilled that part of the scriptures. As the sun shines from the east to the west, he did his job. The most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad began after Master Farah Muhammad left in 1934. The most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad didn't stop on his mission that was given to him. That is to raise his people. And the honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad did this 42 years in the wilderness. And this, doesn't that kind of sound kind of, what's the word we're looking for? Comparison to the 40 years that Moses was in the wilderness? But that's what it was. The Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, may the peace and blessing of Allah forever be upon him, stayed here for 42 years teaching us, preparing us for Master Farah Muhammad, the God that was from the tribe of Shabbat. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. We would like to speak about the actual fact board. On the actual fact board, you have on my right, which will be your left, you have the American flag. It says Christianity upon it there. And upon that, you have the cross. And you have slavery, suffering, and death. Now, you have in the middle, you have down at the bottom, you have a black man hanging on a tree. Look like a cross to me, but anyway, hanging on a tree. And to my left, your right, you have our national flag, the sun, moon, and stars. And up on it, in Islam is up on that, and freedom, justice, and equality is on the deck. Now, praise be to Allah Muhammad. Now, the Honorable Mr. Muhammad gave us this flag. ask you questions about that flag. The most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad teaches us that our flag consists of the sun, moon, and stars. The sun touches everything. The sun, moon, and stars. We are given that as a flag. You have the red background represents the sun. Then you have our star that's in the middle, and on the outside of that you have the moon. The sun represents freedom. The moon is a part of our earth. She's a part of the earth. So she can represent equality. She's part of us. She draws the water from us. She's part of the earth. Then we have the star. I have to say this, when we look out there, we see stars. We see stars. We see when we see the sisters, we see a lot. They are part of a lot. When we see the brothers, they're part of a lot also, but they are the stars. See, the stars shine light throughout the universe. The star on the front of our national represents all the stars of the universe. And it represents justice. That is what the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad gave us for our flag that represents the universe. We don't have a made-up flag. Our flag represents the most important things in the universe: the sun, the moon, and the stars. The moon is our equalizer. The star is justice. And the sun is freedom. So we thank Allah so much for our Father, for giving us our flag of Islam. So praise be to Allah Muhammad. We don't want to take up no more of your time. We would like to bring on our beloved brother minister, pardon me, the spokesman for the New World Nation of Islam, Brother Mumin Ali. Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
How's everyone this afternoon?
Fine, sir.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, in the person of our Father, the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah forever be upon him. And we thank Master Farad Muhammad, who came in the person of Allah in the year of 1930. He is the manifestation of Almighty God Allah. We will remember him and praise him forever. And we will honor him by naming our children after him for at least 1,000 years. And we thank our Father, the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, for raising the field supreme minister of the New World Nation of Islam, Holy Tribe of Shabazz, Ali Mahdi Muhammad. As I greet you in our New World Nation of Islam's greetings. A peace to you in this world, and peace to you in the new world hereafter. Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
The key to understanding the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is to know the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says what he means and means what he says. We quote what he wrote, and what he says we must obey. Nothing
Nothing is wrong. Everything is in time and on time, all the time. The history is already written in 25,000-year cycles. Our Father, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said, before the kingdom can come, there must be a falling away first. And during the night of spiritual darkness, the devil will cast 1/3 of the stars of God down to the ground. But a new sun and a new day under the guidance of the great Mahdi will come, and he will turn the hearts of the children back to our beloved spiritual father, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. The new sun is raised here in the wilderness of North America by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Again, how my beloved brothers and sisters.
Sir.
Young Elijah Muhammad said we should be happy and thankful just to be alive in this day and time. Washington, D.C. speech, May 29th, 1959. This particular speech has great significance within the context of history and respect of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. What is not stated here, that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad states briefly, is that this is at the Uline Arena in Washington, D.C. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad spoke before over 10,000 followers of his. When he arrived at the airport, he received a police escort from the Capitol Police from the airport down Pennsylvania Avenue, where the seat of power of this particular government sits. And they sat there, he said, in a driving rain for over 3 hours to make sure nothing happened to him. And they escorted him back. He said twice they did that. They'll do it tomorrow if they knew I was coming. So we just want to show you the power of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in his May 29, 1959 speech at the Uline Arena. But what we want to cover is something that he stated in there. And you'll find it on page 4 of Fall of America. In there he says, the new day, the new world, if you please, cannot come into full meaning until our people receive justice. That's what he said. The new day, the new world, if you please, cannot come into full meaning until our people receive justice. So what is justice? He said we can't bring in a new day. We can't bring in a new world until we receive something called justice. If we look in Webster's, if we look in Collegiate, if we look in Funk and Wagner, we won't find the justice that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is talking about, because he said his teachings are spiritual teachings. So he's not talking academics, he's not talking intellect. He's talking spirituality, which is the highest definition or form of any word. So he said justice. Well, he gives us the definition of justice on page 2 of Fall of America. He said justice is a common thing, yet it is elusive. He said men have sought its meaning and substance since time began. To show you that he is covering the full scope of the historical record in identifying justice. Because he went on to say that Plato shrugged that justice was nothing more than the wish of the strongest members of society. Then he said Jesus equated justice with brotherhood. And he even waxed theatrical. He said Shakespeare saw it as a matter of mercy. Then he went on to say, I am here to tell you that justice is the eventual working out of the will of God as indicated in the fundamental principles of truth. He said, justice is the antithesis, meaning the complete opposite. Justice is the antithesis of wrong, the weapon God will use to bring judgment upon the world. And he closed out saying the purpose and consummation of his coming. Now, this isn't something that's made up. This is rooted in authenticity and fact. As a matter of fact, a sister by the name of Drusilla Dungy Houston, she wrote a book in 1926 entitled Wonderful Ethiopians of the Ancient Kushite Empire. And on page 11, she echoes what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says. She points out that no world group can receive the knowledge that is due or necessary without the knowledge of self. Then she goes on to say, the knowledge of who is who in the world and each world group must be possessed by world leadership, or else we will continue to go astray. She said, no international council can assign each race its proper place in the consummation of God's plan of the ages. Justice, consummation of God's plan of the ages. All the prophets, even atheists, or they think they're atheists, they bear witness that the consummation or the fundamental purpose of God is to bring about judgment. And here this sister says this. Judgment. That's what she is representing to us. That's what judgment is. That's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is pointing out to us that we must have in order to fully realize this new day in this new world. We have to have justice. So this is what we're after this afternoon concerning this new day and this new world that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad pointed out. Justice. You just received the definition of it. So now, if we look at justice, then we'll understand what Brother Minister was talking about. Justice, when we look at it, is the opposite of Genesis chapter 15, verse 13. Abraham was told, Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and they shall be afflicted there for 400 years. Does that sound like justice or the opposite? People talking about afflicting you. You know that doesn't mean shaking your hand and inviting you down to have dinner at their house and giving you a ticker-tape parade. Affliction means suffering, and in this case, for no just reason or purpose. This is what justice is the opposite of. So now, if you look at Genesis chapter 15, verse 14, we see the birth of justice. Because it says in that same chapter, the next verse, that this nation that you shall serve, I will judge them and bring you out with great substance. That's justice. That's righteousness. That's the doing of good, when no others could give us justice. What this represents is the birth of a truth that will set us free. That's what justice does. When justice comes, justice administers truth that liberates you, that gives you salvation. That's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is talking about, giving us justice, which would give us truth that will set us free. But what truth? If you look in John chapter 8, verse 32, Jesus said, the truth shall set you free. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he never made it known what truth will set you free. We can't afford to take a chance on accepting any brand of truth and willing to invest our future as a people that will set us free. It might set us free into the arms of disaster. We're not looking for that. So what type of freedom will set us free? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in Message to the Black Man on page 97, he says, the teachings of the Bible and Holy Quran's teachings of a resurrection, but it is not referring to the resurrection of a people who are physically dead. He said it is referring to a mental resurrection, wherein the black man will be resurrected into the knowledge of truth. The truth of himself, the truth of him, God, the truth of the arch enemy of God and his people. He said that's the truth that will set you free. Who taught us a pure, unadulterated, divine knowledge of self, if not the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The knowledge of our God. And most certainly, he didn't have to make a hard effort to show us who our arch enemy is, these blonde-haired, blue-eyed devils. So that's the truth that sets us free. But now you have to look at it. This is the truth that sets us free, but it is a disruptive truth. It's not a truth that produces what you think it is, heaven at once. It is a disruptive truth that produces an end to an old world or order of things. In this case, the white man's world. This is what we have to keep in mind. It's not a magic wand situation. When God comes and he comes to administer justice for us and for the purpose of producing a new day and a new world compared to what we've had up to this day and time, it is something that is disruptive. It is based on the principle of creation. In order to create, you have to destroy first. You wanted to build a house. You have to clear the land. You have to level the land. You have to make sure that all of the components of building a house that will stand is provided for. Then you build. This is what the new day and the new world is representative of. It's a disruptive truth, but it sets you free. And it is classified as hate. If truth that will set us free wasn't disruptive, why does the Honorable Elijah Muhammad make 3 statements about truth? He says in his Divine Sayings, Volume 2, Volume 3. On page 24, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, my job is to fight with the sword of truth. He says in Volume 3 on page 48, he says, truth is our sword, our battle weapon, our heaven. And finally, he says on page 78 of Volume 3, he says that the messenger is a sword in a man's hand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, then, that's telling us that truth that will set us free is representative of having to fight. Where have you ever seen freedom being given in totality and indeed by someone who didn't have to fight for it? There's no such thing. That's like a bloodless birth of a child. It just doesn't happen. There's a price to be paid in order to prove your worthiness, qualification, and deservingness for freedom. This is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is pointing out to us. In other words, this truth produces a universal or a sum total change in the very character and constitution of those who will hear it, receive it, and accept it. That's what he is talking about in the production of a people that will create a new day and a new world. The devil calls it in science, cymatics. Cymatics is the application of sound or frequency applied to a physical substance or person, place, or thing. Changing its very essence. That's what it represents. Matter of fact, a brother wrote a book, Ancient Future, Wayne Chandler. He wrote a book on that. And this is what it represents. So, prior to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaching us the truth, prior to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad giving us that which will make us free, what did we have? We didn't have nothing. We had a knowledge of self wherein we were niggers. I know it sounds bad, but it's the truth. But it will set you free. We had a truth of self given to us by other than self, wherein we was Negroes, which by definition is that which is neither this nor that, lifeless, neutral in the way of going and doing for self. We had a knowledge of a God that did not exist. And naturally, we were taught to look at the open enemy of God as our only friend and hope for a future. So how is this the truth that will set us free? But when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came, what did he say? Black man, you a God. Black woman, you a goddess. Queen mother of the planet Earth, the hand that rocked every cradle of every civilization that ever was, is, or will be. Your God is the Lord of all the worlds, black man, because he created himself that. And your enemy, make no mistake about it, he's the blonde-haired, blue-eyed skunk of the planet Earth. Devil personified, the white man. And the historical record bears this witness. That's the truth that set us free. And didn't it cause a shift in our character? Didn't it send a tingle up your spine to hear that? Wasn't it just life-giving to you to hear that from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? Didn't it give you a hope and a true understanding that a new day and a new world was not just possible, but it was in the works? That's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did for us.
Yes, sir.
A new day, a new world, if you please, cannot come into full meaning until justice comes to our people. That's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. But now, in this same chapter, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad states something, and many of our people don't want to accept it. He says in the same chapter, on the same page 4, he said, the burden is not solely upon the oppressor. He said most of it is upon us. He said the time has come that we must speak or die. He said the burden is not mostly upon the oppressor. He said mostly, or most of it is upon us. You see? And the proof of that and the understanding of that is on page 12 of Fall of America. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, he said, we cannot blame the oppressor. He said, most of the burden is on us. He said, how can we beg the oppressor and march on his capital, and on the same hand, preach the doom of the oppressive system? It doesn't make sense. He said, how can you condemn the oppressive system, but just before that, you got hat in hand, begging the oppressor and marching on his capital? He said, I can't do that. Allah is sufficient for all our needs. He said, we are his blessed. He has given us the whole earth. All we have to do is give him our all. So you see, we are forbidden to march. We are forbidden to beg the oppressor. So what is this saying? This is saying that the word, which gives us justice, which sets us free, is capable of giving us the wherewithal and the material, the logistical support to build ourselves up. Just the word. But our people don't believe it. Little audience participation. If I was worth $1.2 trillion, that's 1,200 billion. If I was worth $1.2 trillion, and I came up to you and said, brother, can I borrow $10? And you know I'm worth $1.2 trillion. If I said, sister, can you spare $1? What would you say to me?
No, sir.
Okay. But why are our people marching in the streets talking about no justice, no peace? The Nielsen Company. This is a company whose job is to gather statistical measurements and data on people, places, and things. In this case, they just wrote a white paper, a fact-finding paper on the state of the economic condition of Black America. 2017, the buying power, the spending power, the economic net worth of Black America was $1.2 trillion. But yet, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, you're marching around begging the white man to build factories that you can build for yourself.
That's
walking around begging the white man to build schools that you can build for yourself. All of the community institutions and agencies necessary to make us independent, you're marching saying that he's immoral. Well, yet last year we were worth $1.2 trillion. We're in no moral position to say the white man isn't doing anything for us when he didn't have to do that We're the ones that are derelict in our duty, irresponsible to self and kind in our future. That's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is talking about in a new day, in a new world. Give you nothing, get it yourself. Unity is that which sets us free, but we need a brand of truth that unites us. And that's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad produces. And saying this new day and new world can't come into full meaning until justice. That's just what we have to do with the word of God or the truth of God to produce a new world. And we're blaming the white man. He's acting the way we made him. Unjust and not right. The law of intelligence states if you can't get along, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, the earth is a wide expanse. Separate. We are like a people, the so-called Negro and white folks, we're like a people that have been in a nearly 500-year-old bad marriage. And now divorce has come and we want a property settlement. And our people still holding on to them like a woman who gets knocked upside the head, cursed out, treated like everything but what she should be treated, and that is a goddess, and she still loves this no good, can't even call him a man of a male. This is the state of condition we're in. But yet we were worth $1.2 trillion last year. That's $1,200 billion. They say if you gave each individual $1 billion and they were ordered to spend $100,000 a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year until they spend it all, it would take you over 30 years to spend $1 billion. And we had 1,200 of those as a people. And we want to blame the white man for not giving us a new day in the new world. That's this. It doesn't make any sense. This is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is pointing out to us. We are in a position of power. But see, we are together. We're not united. That's two different words. Together is just a bunch of things that look alike. Unity is oneness of that multiple. That's what we don't have. And yet, to prove it, we get mad at our brothers and sisters who come over here from other lands, our black brothers and sisters, because they have not been divested or robbed of love and unity of self. They know how to come over here, can't speak the language, 50 in one apartment, and within 5 years, they own in the whole block, and you want to get mad at them for exercising love and unity and pooling their resources like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught and doing something for self. That's why he said, give you nothing. That's why the new day isn't on the horizon for us or a new world, because we won't do what Elijah said. We have an example of this. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us the making of the devil. Is that right? If you look in Message to the Black Man, you see an example of how to build a new day and new world for yourself. Even if it is against the will of God, you can do it. Yaqub did it. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us in Message to the Black Man on pages 112 and 113. He said, after Yaqub discovered his purpose, which is to make an enemy for himself, morality aside, we're looking at practices, principles, and operations on how to build a new day and a new world. He said after he developed the understanding of who he is and what he has to make and what he needs to make, he went to work preaching for converts. And he said as he began to preach for converts, persecution set in because the authorities were afraid of such preachings. He said they began to arrest the followers of Yaqub. He said, but to their surprise, when they arrested some and came back out, you had others preaching the same teachings of Yaqub, which was teaching Islam on a luxury basis, teaching that you will receive luxuries. Others will work for you. And Honorable Elijah Muhammad said there's always those who want others to do their work for them. And they fell for Yaqub's teachings 100%. This put fear into the authorities because teachings of luxury and making slaves of others was fearful in its implications. Until they arrested Yaqub and the jails were overflowing, and this is when the authorities went to the king. And the king said, well, tell me about these teachings. Answer these questions for me. And when they did, the king said, that's not that man's name. Talking about Yaqub. He said, that's not that man's name. He said, take me to him. When he took him to Yaqub, the king sat down and he talked to this man like a man of power and authority such as himself, because he was. His followers was overflowing in the prison houses. His followers was a force to be reckoned with, simply from the word that he was teaching. Islam on a luxury basis. The word, that's all he had. Didn't have no wherewithal material-wise. And the king said, Mr. Yaqub, I come to see what type of agreement we can come to resolve this. And what did Yaqub say? Same thing Moses said when he was told to go tell Pharaoh, let my people go. If you will provide for me and my followers everything that you have to start civilization, plus the money and other materials, for 20 years, I'll take my followers and leave from you. What happened? White man's on the planet today, so it must have been successful, or a negotiation from a position of power. Here we are, 50 million, and it was just 59,999 then, and Yaqub made 60,000. And look what they established, a whole new world where they're still dominating. So don't tell us the word can't build a civilization. We have the purest of word. What did it say? In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and it was God too. Who gave us the purest form of power and force of God, and that which encompasses God, if not the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? So why are we still struggling and scratching? You have those that bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us the best program. There's a brother by the name of Amos Wilson. He wrote a book called Blueprint for Black Power, almost 900 pages. And in there on page 81, he points out, and there's some things you have to overlook because he, like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we sometimes talk a little too much on that which we know little about, but he had the essence of it. He said, though much of the theology of the nation is borrowed from orthodoxy, it is Africanized enough so that it serves the purpose of the members of the nation, the black members. And he said that in this particular teachings, the Nation of Islam must be respected because they are a full-fledged culture, nation within a nation, because they represent and possess the institutions which constitutes and defines a culture. And he began to list the things that the nation has. They have the institutions that are representative of religion. They have the institutions that are representative of economics. They have the institutions that are representative of a distinct style of culinary principles and disciplines, of clothing, of all of the institutions, including resource acquisition and development. He said, this is the Nation of Islam. Bearing witness. But yet, our people don't want to accept this truth because it doesn't include the enemy of self, white folks. Like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us. He said, some of our people, and we've met some of our people like this down south, and we're not talking about it. It's just a fact of reality. Some of our people have been so brainwashed. Some of our people have been made to believe the lie to be the truth for so long. If it doesn't come from white folks, if it doesn't involve white folks, they don't want no parts of it. We know people to this day, if they're sick, I want a white doctor. I want a white. Then this is truth. Showing you, like we said, cymatics, frequency or sound that impacts someone, that inclines them to a certain action or reaction. And this is how our people have been made to react. After 500 years of being taught that you're nothing but niggers, you have no history, you're not worthy of being recognized as a full human being, so accept what we give you. And some of our people have been defeated, have been beaten so bad that they actually think that's their lot. This is the state of condition that we're in. This is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us. A November 11, 1966 article, Prepare to Enter the New World. In here he says, we must prepare to enter the new world. There is a universal war being waged against the advent of a new world of righteousness, Islam. And he says, will the old world succeed against the beginning of the new world? He said, according to recorded history, every effort made by the old world in opposition to the New World has failed. He said, every opportunity, every effort has been made to overcome all of the efforts that have been seen and are yet to be seen by the white man. He said, prepare to enter the new world, unite with your own. And he makes it clear, and this is something we should look at that's coming down the pipe in the establishment of the new world. He said, they are ever attacking the messenger as being a liar. But to say the messenger is a liar is to say Allah is a liar. This is what they're going to say. That truth that is producing you food, clothing, shelter, security, peace of mind and contentment, culture and refinement, recognition among other than self, including self, that's not good for you. And some of our people going to buy into. Wait a minute. I'm living a heavenly life. I'm off of welfare. I'm putting my children through school. I got so many bank accounts I can't remember. I got a beautiful home. I have security. When I pick up the phone and call the police, someone that looks like me from my nation's department comes, fire department. When I go to every store, we have all of the competitive edge of any civilization on the planet, where I don't even have to go outside my own in order to acquire the light that I want. But this is wrong because it teaches the truth. And some of our people are going to go there. The new day, the new world, if you please, cannot come into full meaning until justice comes to our people. It's here. But how many of our people are accepting it? That's the point we're making. Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, I am charged with clear deliverance of the message, not belief. So we are discharged with, do you understand, brother? Do you understand, sister? Well, let the record show you understand. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, judgment is between you, Allah, and the devil. That's where we're at now. Clear deliverance. So that means, quote what he wrote. Don't add any of ourselves. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said in his 1967 Savior's Day address, he said, I have no knowledge of what I am teaching you, only what Allah in the person of Master Farad Muhammad has given to you. He said, I do my best. He said, I was raised to interpret for you, and that I do my best to give to you the truth without self-addition. Well, then we get ours from him. So we don't add no self-addition to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because it would be just like saying 1 + 1.5 is 2. It just doesn't work. Islam is mathematics. And he said, leave my teachings as it is, because it is mathematics, because he equated, because he said God equated Islam with mathematics. And the both are true, equal true, that can be proven at any time. He said, so as we can prove figure for figure that mathematics is true, then we can prove word for word that Islam is true. Who taught us Islam? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Well, then leave his Islam the way it is, and we'll be successful. We'll be saying, remember when we was poor? You know, brother and sister get indignant. I beg your pardon, I never was poor. I've always been rich. Allah always, you see? That's right. Like our father said, see what Allah and Islam can do for you when you submit to him. That's the new day. That's the new world. Let us give our people justice so they can't say that we failed in our duty to give them the truth that will set them free. Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir. We have 2 questions online. We have one question by a brother named Hassan Ali. He says, does the New World Nation of Islam believe in abstinence before marriage?
Say that again.
He said abstinence.
He says, does the New World Nation of Islam believe in abstinence before marriage?
We'll let the Honorable Elijah Muhammad answer that. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us in the history of Mary, Joseph, and Jesus that when Joseph came to Mary, after she had called him when her father left to oversee the construction of a new mosque, they were espoused to each other at age 6, the Bible says. So he said, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, nature has no self-control. So while they were alone, naturally, nature took its course, and Jesus was born. So he said, this is why you have separation in the Islamic world of male from female. So yes, we believe in it. There's a certain decorum, a certain protocol, a certain procedure. They call it chaperoning, wherein, You may not even be right for each other, and yet you cross the threshold of no return and you cause societal ills. So to prevent that, Allah has a process to make sure that you're matrimonially compatible. So yes, we do have that. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Jabbar Ali says, peace, peace. Can you explain the two histories of Jesus and the apostle, and even the apostles' history and how it relates to the nation?
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that you have, it was a Muhammad Speaks article, Jesus, sign of a future Jesus, wherein he stated, you have two histories of Jesus, as I have said time and again, and even an apostles' history of the last days, all under the name of Jesus of 2,000 years ago. You have the history of the actual prophet Isa or Jesus of 2,000 years ago, who gave his life for the truth when he saw that he was 2,000 years ahead of time. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad points out that Allah uses many different histories of other people to teach us of ourselves. So you have two histories. There's a prophetic history of the Jesus coming. You have one coming that refers to Jesus that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad met in 1931 in Detroit, Master Farad Muhammad. This is a history that fulfills the history of a promise to Muhammad of 1,400 years ago. Peace and mercy of Allah forever be upon him, and may he forever be one with Allah. Wherein he is told in Bani Israel, or the 17th surah or chapter of the Holy Quran, for his great work, he would be the first to meet God in person. The lineage of Farad of 1930 and Muhammad of 1,400 years ago is the same, Karash. So his coming as Allah, as the great Mahdi, as Almighty God Allah, as that Revelations angel 18:1, who comes from the east to meet Elijah, his uncle. He fulfills that. But there's another history. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, Allah in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, who comes to destroy the devil, kill the devil, is of the tribe of Shabazz. That's the Allah that he raises. Didn't John the Baptist raise a Jesus? What did Jesus say about John? There's none greater than him. All praise is due to John. That wasn't Farad in 1930. What did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad say on page 35 of Our Savior as a Rob? He said, Farad in 1930, he gave me the truth, and he said, here it is, Elijah. Now I can go, and you can go. He said, I said, thank you. He said, you don't need me anymore. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, oh yes, I do need you. The name. The 1,000 years that the Christians call millennium is the 1,000 years that Christ, or Farad, the name must be prolific and ever present. That's in that God today. So here is the two histories of Jesus and the apostles' history. Because remember the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, it says that Jesus had a government upon his shoulders. Where's theirs? He said, I have a government upon mine. So all of those fulfillments are representative of the gods in the last day and time from a prophetic perspective. So that's where we're at today.
Yes, sir. We also have a question about a sister named Danielle. She says, how did the war of Armageddon come about between blacks and whites?
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, it's called Armageddon because it's a holy war. And when you involve religion, it makes it a divine war, a holy war. He said, the nations are arming, and they're continuing to arm. As it said, and they gathered in a valley called Armageddon. He pointed out that the great Mahdi, when he comes to make war. He said that in 67 Savior's Day. He said because when he comes, the old world is not going to go out without being pushed out. And then he used an analogy. He said, you can't blame a man that's riding on a horse or in the saddle of a horse to get off the horse to get on an ox. He said, so we don't tarry there too long. In order to get the driver, you take both. So this is representative of conflict, not horse theft. So this is representative of a conflict coming about. He says, and the Holy Quran points out, that he comes to destroy those who delight themselves in making war. And this is proof. The angel said, Lord, what will you put in the earth except that which will make mischief in the land and cause bloodshed? So naturally, to remove that, which is the opposite of peace, freedom, justice, and equality and righteousness, you have to meet them where they stand in that which they understand, war. So This is why we have an Armageddon, called the apocalypse, called the judgment, called the final battle between good and evil, right and wrong, God and the devil, black and white. And that's why it's called Armageddon and all the other, as they say, derivatives that represents a final battle between God and his arch enemy, which happens to be the white man.
Yes, sir. We have a question by a brother named Mustafa Ali. He says, peace, brother minister. Why is it said that we make history every 25,000? What does that mean?
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said we did. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, and our Savior has arrived, that Master Farad Muhammad taught him that the writing of the history, the national history, the nation's history of everything that will go on our planet and elsewhere for 25,000 years goes back at least to the deportation of the moon. Because he points out that we used to write history the last 35,000 years, which was prior to the deportation. What he is showing us is that only God, or gods under God, can write history in the prophetic and fulfill it with mathematical precision every time. White folks live the history, then they write the history. We write it showing that we are more disciplined, that we are more sound in stability and righteousness, because our history is always on a righteous and just trajectory, that we are able to write it for tens of thousands of years. In fact, it's not just that. It shows that the black man has the discipline to have the stick-to-itiveness to keep the mindset and the process going for as long as we want. We just happen to use 25,000. There's a people in Mali, West Africa, called the Dogon, and they are able to plot celestial courses of the heavens of stars for as long as 26,000 years, if they like, and they produce an accurate trajectory and course of those celestial bodies every time. And they do this without the means of mechanical devices. In fact, two devils from MIT, when they discovered these brothers and sisters, they said, how do these people know this? They have no right having this knowledge. That's a quote. They have no right having this knowledge. And yet these are scientists. So this is why we write history to last 25,000 years. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that this Allah, in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, will establish a kingdom of heaven of righteousness, freedom, justice, and equality that will last forever. And the scientists, they see no end to his kingdom through their microscopes.
Yes, sir. We have another question online from a brother named Hassan Ali. He says, I know all men were not created equal because we are gods, but what were all black men created equal?
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said there's no such thing as we all being created equal. He said for that to have happened, we all would have had to show at the same time. He said, though all the stars are made of fire, none of them are the same by characteristic. Matter of fact, even the devil bears witness. We were looking at a documentary earlier this week, and it was talking about the isotopes and the other elements of stars. They trying to find the first star. Good luck. But they was pointing out the characteristics and the differences in all of the stars throughout the galaxies, throughout the heavens, though they are all balls of fire, just like our Father said. So
We have another question from Jabbar Ali. He says, if someone came from another religious group, can they be looked upon as a hypocrite or a disbeliever of what they were already in?
Judgment is reserved for Allah. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that Allah is the judge. As the field supreme minister often said, we are only here as helpers, directors, and guides. As the Bible says, will you judge another man's servant? How can we judge? Look at where we were at before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad got his hands on us. As it said, the Holy Quran says, there are books that will not be opened. And we're thankful for some of the things we have said and done. You see, so it says that we will be resurrected from a deaf, dumb, and blind state, that we will be resurrected from a robbed and spoiled state. We will be resurrected from a mentally dead state like Hiram, the widow's son. So we had to be in a state of disrepair, but it says that he called the bones together from the four winds, and they came together, the truth, and showing you the mercy of Allah. Yes, sir.
Peace, good class. My question is how Will the American so-called Negroes get justice in a country that don't belong to them?
Now, when you say don't belong to them, you mean
Meaning USA.
doesn't belong to the Negro?
Yes, the Americans.
Oh, very easy. You see, right at the top of Muhammad's speech, the earth belongs to Allah. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that Allah will kill a nation to give us a nation. His words. Well, America was going good. I mean, not America, but the Western Hemisphere was going good, and it was occupied, and there was culture and civilization here before the white man came. And you see how he got the nation. And he's constantly running around saying, niggers go back to Africa. Well, how did you get America? You see, that was a grand theft of the highest order with a massive kidnap, which is a capital punishment, even by their jurisprudence or government. So America is not ours. The whole planet is ours. And wherever Allah says we will set down roots and build up a nation, that's where we will do it. But as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, that we have to act as an independent, civilized people wherever we are. We must have the institutions, we must have the principles of action and conduct that any independent people or self-loving and respecting people have. America is the indigenous people who was here 16,000 years, man, before the devil even showed. We'll be all right. Our Father said, on this continent or elsewhere, Allah will make a nation for us. Any more questions?
No, sir, that is the end of our question and answer segment, sir.
We thank Allah Muhammad. On that point again, it's not a matter of Allah giving us, it's a matter of us being qualified to receive. Because many nations, they are nations, but they don't have the qualifications. They call it, in the political science, they call it a kakistocracy. A kakistocracy is a government that is run by the least qualified, the least able, and the least professional of government workers. So we don't want that kind of government. We want to be qualified. This is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, if you give a man the kingdom and he doesn't know how to maintain it, you're wasting his time, wasting your time. He needs to be taught how to keep up the kingdom. So qualification is the most important thing than to be given the land that we can't do nothing with, but give it back to the ones who gave it to us. With that, we thank Allah Muhammad much as we turn the Rafsam back to your hard-working, beloved brother, minister, and mine, Rahim Hussein Ali. Peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
Praise be to Allah Muhammad. Let's give our spokesman a round of applause. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. We thank Allah so much for today. This is a great day. We are just about ready to close our temple service down. And what we want to do before we do that is let you know that if you want to donate anything to the New World Nation of Islam, you can go to donate to www.newworld.com, and they can get it and donate. Also, if there's anyone here who want to have heard anything to make them want to join into their own New World Nation of Islam, we have a brother in the rear and we have a sister in the rear. They can go and get the application and fill it out here, or they can do it later. But we have a brother and sister in the rear to do that. Also, if you go to our website, the New World Nation of Islam, www.newworldnationofislam.com, and you can download the page on the website, and you fill it out the best you can, just like it is, and mail it in. Get your response back. Praise be to Allah Muhammad. Again, we thank Allah so much for you coming. We want the king to understand the teachings of the most honorable Muslim Elijah Muhammad is to know that the most honorable Muslim Elijah Muhammad says what he means what he says. We quote what he wrote, and what he said we must obey. Nothing is wrong. Everything is in time and on time all the time. The history is already written in 25,000 year cycles. Our father, the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad said, before the kingdom can come, there must be a falling away first. During the night of spiritual darkness, the devil will cast 1/3 of the stars of God down to the ground. But a new sun and a new day, under the guidance of the great Mahdi, will come, and he will turn the hearts of the children back to our father, the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. The new sun is raised here in the West by the most honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. So with that, everyone please rise. Extend your hands and come here and those who hold the prayer while about to receive the gift. You may recite along with me silently as I recite aloud. Closing prayer. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, master of the day of requital. Thee do we serve, and thee do we beseech for help. Guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favor, not of those upon whom wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray. Amen. Till the service is closed.